Maya had been selling fruits at the busy street corner for 3 years now. Every morning at 5, she would drag her wooden cart from the small room she rented behind Mrs. Chen's bakery to the intersection where office workers hurried past on their way to gleaming towers downtown. Her left leg, twisted from birth, made the journey slow and painful, but Maya never complained. The cart was her lifeline, her only source of income in a city that seemed to have no place for people like her. She arranged her fruits with the care of an artist. The bright red apples formed perfect pyramids, oranges rolled into neat lines, and bananas hung from hooks she had hammered into the cart herself. Despite her disability, Maya had learned to move efficiently around her small mobile shop. She had developed her own rhythm, using her strong right leg to pivot and her arms to balance as she served customers. The regular customers knew her well. Mr. Kim, who worked at the bank across the street, always bought 2 apples and an orange for his lunch. Mrs. Rodriguez from the flower shop next door would pick up bananas every Tuesday for her family. They were kind to Maya, treating her with respect and warmth. But most people barely noticed her. To them, she was just another street vendor, invisible among the chaos of city life. Maya had dreams beyond her fruit cart. In the evenings, when she counted her earnings by candlelight, she would imagine owning a real shop with proper shelves and a cash register that made pleasant sounds. She dreamed of hiring other people who struggled to find work, creating a place where everyone felt welcome regardless of their circumstances. These dreams kept her going through the long, difficult days when her leg ached and the heat made her dizzy. Her disability had shaped her entire life. Born to parents who could barely afford food, Maya had been a burden from the start. The local clinic had no resources for children with birth defects, and her family had no money for proper treatment. She had taught herself to read by looking at old newspapers people threw away. Mathematics came from counting change and calculating profits from her fruit sales. The wealthy businessman first appeared on a rainy Thursday morning in March. Maya noticed him immediately because he was different from the usual rushed commuters. He walked slowly, talking quietly on his phone, his expensive black car following behind him like a loyal dog. His driver, a kind-looking older man, stayed in the vehicle while the businessman seemed to be taking a deliberate walk through the neighborhood. Alexander Chen stopped in front of her cart, not to buy fruit, but because he had never really looked at the street vendors who lined this route to his office. He was tired of his isolated life, tired of being surrounded only by people who wanted something from him. This morning walk was his attempt to connect with the real world beyond his corporate bubble. Maya felt nervous under his gaze. She was used to being ignored or treated with pity, but this man looked at her differently. There was no judgment in his eyes, just curiosity. She busied herself rearranging oranges that were already perfectly arranged, her hands trembling slightly. "How much for the apples?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle for someone who looked so serious. $2 each, or 3 for $5. Maya replied, her English careful and clear despite her nervousness. Alexander studied the fruits. They were beautifully presented, obviously cared for. "You take good care of your business," he observed. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I try my best. These fruits feed me, so I must treat them well." Something in her response caught his attention. Most people in business talked about profit margins and customer acquisition. This young woman spoke about her fruits as if they were partners in her survival. Alexander bought 6 apples, far more than he could eat, and handed her a $20 bill. "Keep the change," he said when Maya reached for her small metal box of coins. "No, sir. That is too much. Your change is $6. Maya held out the money with a firm expression. Alexander was surprised. In his world, people grabbed every opportunity to take more than they deserved. "You're honest." "Honesty is all I have," Maya replied simply. As Alexander walked away, he found himself thinking about the fruit seller. There had been something dignified about her refusal to take extra money, something pure about her simple philosophy. That evening, sitting in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city, he realized he had been more engaged in that brief conversation than in any business meeting that week. Maya watched his expensive car disappear into traffic and wondered if she would ever see the kind stranger again. She had no way of knowing that Alexander Chen owned the building where her landlady's bakery was located, or that his family's business empire included grocery chains, restaurants, and food distribution companies across the country. That night, Maya counted her earnings as usual. The businessman's purchase had given her the best day in weeks. She allowed herself to buy a small piece of meat from the market and cooked it with rice for dinner, a luxury she rarely afforded. As she ate, she thought about the man's gentle voice and the way he had looked at her fruits with genuine interest. Alexander, meanwhile, sat in his study surrounded by financial reports and business proposals. But his mind kept returning to the fruit seller's words about honesty being all she had. In his world of contracts and negotiations, trust was rare and honesty was often a weakness. Yet something about her simple statement felt more valuable than all the complex deals he had closed that month. Neither Maya nor Alexander could have predicted that this brief encounter would be the first thread in a story that would change both their lives forever. Maya fell asleep dreaming of her usual fantasies about expanding her business, while Alexander stared out at the city lights, feeling strangely unsettled by a conversation that had lasted less than 5 minutes. The next morning would bring new challenges, new encounters, and the slow realization that sometimes the most important connections happen in the most unexpected places. Alexander found himself taking the same walking route to his office the next morning, though he told himself it was just coincidence. His driver, Robert, had been with the Chen family for 20 years and noticed everything. He watched in the rearview mirror as his employer slowed down near the fruit cart, though Alexander made no move to stop. Maya was having a difficult morning. Her leg was particularly painful after yesterday's rain, and she had slept badly on the thin mattress in her tiny room. The wholesale market had been crowded and chaotic, and she had arrived at her corner later than usual. Several of her regular customers had already passed by, and she was worried about losing their business. When she saw the black car approaching, her heart jumped unexpectedly. She tried to focus on arranging her pears, but found herself glancing up as the vehicle slowed. Through the tinted windows, she caught a glimpse of the businessman from yesterday. He seemed to be looking in her direction, but the car continued without stopping. Maya felt disappointed, though she couldn't understand why. The man was clearly wealthy and important. What reason would he have to stop at her humble cart again? She scolded herself for being foolish and turned her attention back to serving Mrs. Kim, who was examining the mangoes. Alexander spent his morning in back-to-back meetings, but his concentration was poor. He found his thoughts drifting to the fruit seller's dignified refusal of extra money. During a particularly boring presentation about quarterly projections, he wondered about her story. How had she ended up selling fruits on the street? Did she have family? What were her dreams beyond that wooden cart? These thoughts troubled him because Alexander had trained himself not to be curious about people's personal lives. In business, emotional involvement led to poor decisions. He had built his success on maintaining professional distance, on seeing people as assets or liabilities rather than individuals with complex stories. By lunchtime, Alexander made a decision that surprised even him. Instead of eating at his usual expensive restaurant, he told Robert to drive back to the fruit seller's corner. This time, he got out of the car. Maya was sharing her simple lunch of rice and vegetables with an elderly homeless man who often passed by her cart. She gave him half of her food without hesitation, though it meant she would be hungry later. Alexander watched this exchange from across the street, struck by her generosity despite her obvious poverty. When the old man shuffled away with grateful thanks, Alexander approached the cart. Maya looked up and smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her tired face into something beautiful. "You came back," she said, sounding pleased but not surprised. "I wanted more apples." Alexander lied, though he still had 5 uneaten apples at home from yesterday's purchase. Maya studied his face. "You have kind eyes, but you tell small lies. You do not need more apples." Alexander was startled by her directness. People rarely challenged him so gently. "You're right. I don't know why I came back." "Perhaps you are lonely," Maya said simply. "Rich people can be very lonely. I see them in their cars, always talking on phones but never talking to each other." This observation hit closer to home than Alexander cared to admit. What makes you think I'm lonely? Yesterday you walked slowly, like someone who does not want to reach his destination. Today you came back to buy fruits you do not need. Lonely people do strange things to feel connected. Alexander bought oranges this time, and again Maya carefully counted his correct change. What is your name? He asked. Maya. Maya Patel. And you? Alexander. He paused, then added, Alexander Chen. Maya's eyes widened slightly. Even someone as disconnected from high society as her had heard the name Chen. The Chen family owned half the commercial buildings in the downtown area. Their name was on hospital wings and university buildings. She realized she had been talking to one of the city's most powerful men as if he were just another customer. You are a very important person, she said, suddenly feeling awkward. Not so important, Alexander replied. Important people don't need to buy oranges from street vendors to have interesting conversations. This made Maya laugh, a sound that surprised them both with its warmth. My conversations are not so interesting. I only know about fruits and weather and small things. Small things can be the most important things, Alexander said, though he wasn't sure why he felt that way. Their conversation was interrupted by a group of teenagers who began making cruel comments about Maya's disability. They pointed at her leg and mimicked her careful movements, laughing loudly. Maya's face flushed with shame and anger, but she said nothing. She had learned that responding to such cruelty only made it worse. Alexander felt a surge of protective anger. Without thinking, he stepped closer to the cart and fixed the teenagers with a cold stare that had intimidated corporate rivals. His presence, expensive clothes, and obvious authority made the young people uncomfortable. They mumbled apologies and hurried away. You did not need to do that, Maya said quietly, though she was grateful. Yes, I did. Alexander's voice was firm. No one should treat another person that way. Maya looked at him with new respect. Many people had witnessed similar incidents over the years, but most just looked away or walked faster. This wealthy stranger had defended her without hesitation. Thank you, she said simply. Alexander stayed for a few more minutes asking about her fruits and listening to her explain the differences between apple varieties. He found her knowledge impressive and her enthusiasm infectious. When he finally left, he realized he had learned more about agriculture in 20 minutes than in all his business school courses combined. That afternoon, Alexander couldn't concentrate on work. He kept thinking about Maya's quiet dignity in the face of those teenagers' cruelty. He thought about her sharing her lunch with a homeless man, about her careful honesty with money, about the way she cared for her fruits as if they were precious jewels. Maya closed her cart that evening with mixed feelings. The businessman's visit had been the highlight of her difficult day, but she warned herself not to read too much into his kindness. Rich people sometimes performed small acts of charity to make themselves feel better. Tomorrow he would probably return to his normal routine, and she would be forgotten. But as Alexander sat in his penthouse that night, looking out at the city where Maya was counting her earnings by candlelight, he was making plans. Plans that would change everything for both of them, though neither yet understood the magnitude of what was beginning between them. The third morning brought unexpected rain that turned Maya's corner into a small river. She struggled to protect her fruits with a torn plastic sheet, while water soaked through her worn shoes. Her cart's wooden wheels stuck in the mud, and several oranges rolled into the street where passing cars crushed them into pulp. Maya felt tears mixing with rainwater on her cheeks. This was more than just bad weather. It was a disaster that could cost her several days' earnings. The damaged fruits couldn't be sold, and she had no money to replace them. Worse, her leg was throbbing from the effort of maneuvering the heavy cart through the muddy street. Alexander's car approached through the downpour, windshield wipers working furiously. Robert had to drive slowly because visibility was poor, and when they reached Maya's corner, Alexander saw her desperately trying to save her remaining inventory. Without thinking, he told Robert to stop the car. "Sir, you'll get soaked," Robert warned as Alexander reached for the door handle. "It's just water," Alexander replied, stepping out into the storm. Maya looked up in surprise as someone appeared beside her cart. Alexander was already drenched, his expensive suit clinging to his body, but he began helping her collect scattered fruits without hesitation. Together, they managed to salvage most of her inventory and wheeled the cart under a nearby shop awning. "Your beautiful clothes are ruined," Maya said, distressed. She knew his suit probably cost more than she earned in 6 months. "They're just clothes," Alexander replied, though he was shivering in the cold rain. "Are you hurt? Your leg?" Maya was touched that he had noticed her disability wasn't just physical difference but actually caused her pain. Most people either stared rudely or pretended not to see it at all. "I am fine, but my fruits?" Alexander examined the damaged produce. About half of Maya's inventory was bruised or split, unsellable in their current condition. He could see her calculating the financial impact, worry creasing her brow. "How much would you have earned today?" he asked. "Maybe $40 on good day, but now—" Maya gestured helplessly at her reduced stock. Alexander pulled out his wallet and handed her $200. "This should cover the loss and tomorrow's wholesale purchases." Maya stared at the money but didn't take it. "This is charity. I cannot accept charity." "It's not charity. Consider it a business investment." "Investment in what?" "I have nothing to offer investor like you." Alexander paused, realizing he didn't have a good answer. What was he investing in? A small fruit cart that barely generated survival income? The honest truth was that he wanted to help her, but Maya's pride wouldn't accept simple kindness from a stranger. "Your knowledge," he said finally. "I want to learn about your business, how you choose fruits, manage inventory, deal with customers. Consider this payment for consulting services." Maya looked skeptical. "You want to learn fruit selling from me? You who own buildings and companies?" "Every business is about understanding customers and providing value. Size doesn't change the fundamentals." There was enough truth in this statement that Maya felt she could accept the money without compromising her dignity. They agreed that she would teach him about fruit vending in exchange for his advance payment. Over the next week, Alexander began stopping by Maya's cart every morning. Their lessons became the most unusual business education either had ever experienced. Maya taught him how to judge fruit ripeness by touch and smell, how to arrange displays to attract customers, and how to calculate profit margins when every penny mattered. In return, Alexander found himself sharing real business principles he had never articulated before. He explained how customer loyalty was built through consistent quality and fair treatment, how reputation was more valuable than short-term profits, and how successful businesses solved genuine problems for their customers. Their conversations attracted attention from other street vendors and regular customers. People were curious about the well-dressed man who spent his mornings learning from the disabled fruit seller. Some assumed Alexander was conducting research for a charity project. Others wondered if he was planning to buy the corner for development. Maya's friend Rosa, who sold flowers from the cart next to hers, was suspicious of Alexander's motives. "Rich men don't help poor women without wanting something," she warned Maya during their lunch break. "He is different," Maya insisted. "He listens when I speak. He asks about my thoughts, not just my body or my problems." Rosa shook her head. "Be careful, sister. Hearts break easier than legs heal." But Maya found herself looking forward to Alexander's visits more than she wanted to admit. He treated her as an equal, asking her opinions about business strategies and actually implementing some of her suggestions in his own companies. When she suggested that his grocery chain stores could reduce waste by donating near-expired produce to food banks, Alexander made it happen within a week. Alexander was changing, too, though he didn't fully recognize it yet. His board meetings became more focused on long-term value rather than quarterly profits. He began asking questions about how corporate decisions affected workers and communities. His assistant noticed that he was happier, more engaged, and had stopped working late into the evening. The transformation became obvious during a corporate dinner with other business leaders. When someone made disparaging comments about lazy poor people who chose not to work, Alexander found himself defending people like Maya, who worked harder than anyone he knew despite facing obstacles others couldn't imagine. "You sound like a bleeding Heart liberal, laughed one of his colleagues. What's happened to the ruthless Alexander Chen we all know? Alexander realized he wasn't sure who he was becoming, but he knew he liked this version of himself better than the man he had been just weeks earlier. One evening, Maya was closing her cart when a black sedan pulled up. 3 men in expensive suits got out and approached her. They weren't customers, and something about their manner made her nervous. "You're Maya Patel?" the tallest man asked. "Yes. Do you want to buy fruits?" "We want to talk about your relationship with Alexander Chen. Some people are concerned about his recent behavior, his new interests. They think you might be a distraction he can't afford." Maya felt cold despite the warm evening air. "I don't understand. We are just friends." Friendship between people of different social classes can be complicated. Perhaps it would be better if you found a different location for your business. We know of opportunities in other parts of the city. The threat was subtle but clear. Maya's hands shook as she locked her cart. "I will think about what you said." After the men left, Maya sat on the curb and cried. She had known this happiness was too good to last. Rich people lived in a different world with different rules. She had been foolish to think she could be part of Alexander's life, even as just a friend and business consultant. That night, Maya made a decision that would test everything Alexander claimed to believe about treating people fairly, regardless of their circumstances. Alexander arrived at Maya's corner the next morning to find her cart missing. The elderly man who sold newspapers from the adjacent corner told him that Maya had left before dawn, saying she was moving to a new location across the city. She had left no message, no forwarding address, nothing to explain her sudden departure. Alexander felt a strange emptiness as he stared at the empty space where Maya's colorful cart had brightened the corner every day for weeks. He realized that their morning conversations had become more important to him than most of his business meetings. The thought that he might never see her again created an ache he hadn't expected. He spent the day distracted and irritable. During a board meeting about expanding into international markets, Alexander found himself wondering if Maya was safe, if she had found a good spot for her cart, if she had enough customers in her new location. His preoccupation was so obvious that his assistant asked if he was feeling ill. That evening, Alexander made a decision that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. He told Robert to drive to the wholesale fruit market on the other side of the city. If Maya was still in the fruit business, she would need to buy inventory somewhere. The wholesale market was a chaotic maze of trucks, vendors, and buyers negotiating over everything from single bananas to truckloads of produce. Alexander had never seen anything like it. The noise was overwhelming, the smells intense, and the pace frantic. He wandered through the aisles feeling completely out of place in his business suit. After 2 hours of searching, he finally spotted Maya examining mangoes at a vendor's stall. She was bargaining quietly in a mixture of English and what sounded like Hindi, her hands expressing what her limited vocabulary couldn't. She looked tired, and Alexander noticed she was favoring her good leg more than usual. When Maya turned and saw him, her face showed surprise, then something that looked like fear. She quickly paid for her mangoes and began walking away as fast as her disability allowed. "Maya, wait," Alexander called, following her through the crowded market. She stopped beside a loading dock, turning to face him with resignation. "You should not be here. This is not place for person like you. What happened? Why did you leave without saying anything?" Maya looked around nervously as if expecting the suited men to appear again. "Some people came to see me. They said I was distraction. For you, that I should move my business somewhere else." Alexander felt anger rising in his chest. Who were they? What exactly did they say? It does not matter. They were right. We live in different worlds. I was foolish to think we could be friends. "Maya, look at me." Alexander waited until she met his eyes. "Those people don't speak for me. No one decides who I spend my time with except me. But they were your people. Rich people, powerful people. They knew things about your business." Alexander's jaw tightened as he began to understand what had happened. His business partners and board members had been questioning his recent changes, his new focus on social responsibility over pure profit. They had seen his friendship with Maya as a symbol of weakness, a distraction from serious business. "I don't care what they think," he said firmly. "You're not a distraction. You're the most genuine person I've met in years." Maya shook her head sadly. "You say this now, but later you will understand they are right. I am poor, disabled woman who sells fruits. You are rich, powerful man who owns companies. People will laugh at you, say you are foolish. Let them laugh. Easy words, but hard life. I have seen what happens when rich people try to help poor people. They feel good for a little while, then they get tired of problems and complications. They go back to their comfortable life, and poor people are left worse than before." Alexander realized that Maya wasn't just talking about abstract social differences. Someone had hurt her before, someone she had trusted. "Who was it? Who made you stop believing in friendship?" Maya was quiet for a long moment. "My father worked for a rich family when I was a small girl. The father was kind man, always talking about helping workers, treating everyone fairly. He paid for my medical treatments, sent me to school. I thought he was angel." She paused, remembering. "But when business became difficult, everything changed. He said he could not afford charity anymore. My father lost job, I lost school, medical treatment stopped. The kind man became stranger who did not see us anymore." Alexander understood now why Maya had run away. She was protecting herself from inevitable disappointment, and protecting him from the complications her friendship might create in his privileged world. "I'm not that man," Alexander said quietly. "How can I know? How can you know? You have never been tested by real problems." Alexander had no good answer to this challenge. Maya was right that he had never faced the kind of pressures that would truly test his values. His life had been cushioned by wealth and privilege. "Come back," he said finally. "Come back to your corner. If people have problems with our friendship, let them complain to me directly. And if they make business troubles for you, if they say you are unfit to run companies because you waste time with street vendor, then I'll deal with those problems when they come." Maya studied his face, wanting to believe him but afraid to hope. "You do not understand what you are asking. Your world has rules. Rich people marry rich people. They do business with their own kind. They help poor people from distance, with donations and charity events, not with friendship. Maybe it's time to change those rules." Despite her fear, Maya felt her heart lifting at his words, but she forced herself to be practical. "Where would I put cart? The men said I could not come back to our corner. The corner where you sell fruits is on property I own. No one can force you to leave without my permission." Maya stared at him in shock. "You own the building?" "My family owns most of the buildings in that area. I should have mentioned it earlier, but I didn't want to make you uncomfortable." This revelation changed everything. Maya realized that Alexander's power was even greater than she had imagined, which made his friendship with her even more unlikely and precious. It also meant that he could protect her from the men who had threatened her. "If I come back, things will be different," she warned. "People will be watching us, judging us. Your business friends will not approve. Then we'll show them that friendship doesn't require approval from committees." Maya made her decision. She would return to her corner, not because Alexander was powerful enough to protect her, but because she had seen something in his eyes that convinced her his friendship was real. Neither of them realized that this conversation in the chaotic wholesale market was being photographed by a private investigator hired by Alexander's business rivals. The pictures would appear in gossip columns within days, forcing them both to confront the social barriers they were trying to cross. The newspaper headline read, "Billionaire's Mystery Woman. Alexander Chen's Secret Romance with Disabled Street Vendor." The photographs showed Alexander and Maya talking intimately at the wholesale market, their faces close together, his hand touching her shoulder in what looked like a romantic gesture. Maya saw the newspaper when Mrs. Rodriguez brought it to show her, thinking Maya should know what people were saying. The story was full of speculation about Alexander's mental state, suggestions that he was having a midlife crisis or suffering from some kind of breakdown that led him to form inappropriate relationships. The article quoted unnamed business associates, expressing concern about Alexander's judgment and fitness to lead major corporations. It suggested that Maya might be taking advantage of a lonely rich man, using her disability to gain his sympathy and access to his wealth. Maya felt sick reading the cruel words. The newspaper made their friendship sound dirty and manipulative. She had expected gossip, but not this level of public humiliation. Worse, she worried about what this publicity might do to Alexander's business and reputation. Alexander read the same article in his office, his anger growing with every paragraph. The invasion of their privacy was bad enough, but the suggestion that Maya was somehow manipulating him was intolerable. He immediately called his lawyer and public relations team. "We need to kill this story," he told them. "Issue a statement saying Ms. Patel is a business consultant who has provided valuable insights into retail operations." His PR director shook her head. "Sir, that might make it worse. It draws more attention to the relationship and makes it seem like we're hiding something. Sometimes the best strategy is to ignore gossip and let it fade naturally. I won't let them attack her character without defending her. With respect, sir, defending her publicly validates the story. It makes it seem more important than it is." Alexander struggled with this advice. Every instinct told him to fight back against the lies, but he could see the strategic wisdom in staying quiet. Still, he worried about Maya facing the scrutiny, alone. At the fruit cart, Maya was discovering that sudden fame was a nightmare. Reporters came by asking invasive questions about her relationship with Alexander. Photographers took pictures while she worked, turning her daily routine into a spectacle. Curious people drove by just to stare at the woman who had captured a billionaire's attention. Some customers were supportive, telling Maya to ignore the gossip and praising Alexander for seeing beyond social barriers. But others made cruel comments about gold diggers and questioned what a disabled woman could offer a successful man. The worst part was the doubt the articles planted in her own mind. Was their friendship really as pure as she had believed? Had Alexander's kindness been motivated by pity rather than genuine respect? The newspaper's suggestions seemed impossible, but the constant questions made her question her own perceptions. Rosa, her flower-selling friend, was protective, but practical. "This attention will pass," she told Maya during their lunch break. "But you need to decide what you want from this friendship. If you care about him, maybe staying away is kindness." "What do you mean?" "Men like him have responsibilities to many people. Investors, employees, families who depend on his companies for jobs. If your friendship damages his business, innocent people suffer." This perspective hadn't occurred to Maya, and it added a new layer of worry to her situation. She had been thinking about her own feelings and Alexander's, but not about the broader consequences of their relationship. That evening, Alexander came to the cart after most of the reporters had left. He looked tired and angry, but his expression softened when he saw Maya's distressed face. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I should have anticipated this might happen. I should have protected you better." "You cannot protect people from newspapers and cameras. But maybe Rosa's right. Maybe I should stay away until people forget about this story." "Is that what you want?" Maya looked at him honestly. "I want to believe our friendship is real and good, but these articles make me doubt everything. They make me wonder if I see things that are not there, if I mistake pity for respect." Alexander felt his heart break a little at her words. Gossip had accomplished exactly what it was designed to do, creating doubt where there had been trust, shame where there had been pride. "Maya, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "Do you remember our first conversation about honesty, being all you have? That honesty is what I value most about our friendship. You've never asked me for money or favors or anything except fair payment for fair work. How could that be manipulation? But why do you spend time with me? Rich man like you must have many friends, many people who want your attention." "I have many people who want something from me. You're the only person who gives more than you take. You've made me a better person, a better businessman, without asking for anything in return." Maya felt tears in her eyes. "The newspaper says you are having crisis, that I am taking advantage of confused man. The newspaper is wrong. I'm not confused. I'm clearer about my values than I've ever been. And that clarity came from knowing you. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a black limousine. Alexander's mother, Catherine Chen, stepped out wearing an elegant dress and a stern expression. Maya had never met her, but the family resemblance was obvious. "Alexander, we need to talk," Catherine said, barely glancing at Maya. "Mother, I'd like you to meet Maya Patel." "Maya, this is my mother." Catherine acknowledged Maya with a cold nod. "Ms. Patel, I'm sure you understand why I'm here." Maya understood perfectly. The newspaper coverage had reached Alexander's family, and they were not pleased. She felt small and shabby standing next to this elegant woman who radiated wealth and power. "Perhaps we should speak privately," Catherine suggested to Alexander. "Anything you want to say can be said in front of Maya." Catherine's expression showed that she disapproved of this decision, but she continued. "This publicity is damaging to our family name and your business reputation. The board is asking questions about your judgment and priorities. My priorities are exactly where they should be. Your priorities should be with the company that employs thousands of people and the family that has built this wealth over 3 generations." Maya watched this exchange feeling increasingly uncomfortable. She could see the love between mother and son, but also the fundamental disagreement about values and responsibilities. "Mrs. Chen," Maya said quietly, "maybe I should go. I do not want to cause problems in your family." Catherine looked at her with surprise, as if she hadn't expected Maya to speak. "That would be considerate of you." But Alexander shook his head firmly. "No one is going anywhere. Mother, Maya is my friend. She's going to remain my friend regardless of what newspapers write or what the board thinks." The confrontation that followed would force all 3 of them to examine what they truly believed about love, loyalty, and the courage to challenge social expectations. The confrontation between Alexander and his mother lasted 30 minutes, with Maya standing awkwardly beside her fruit cart while they argued in voices that grew steadily louder. Catherine Chen was not accustomed to having her son defy her wishes, especially not for someone she considered an inappropriate influence. "You're risking everything our family has built," Catherine said, her voice tight with frustration. "The board is already questioning your leadership. These photographs make you look unstable, unreliable." "I'm not risking anything important," Alexander replied firmly. "I'm choosing to value people over profit margins and reputation over rigid social rules." "Social rules exist for good reasons, Alexander. They maintain order, protect families, preserve businesses that support entire communities." Maya finally spoke up, her voice small but determined. "Mrs. Chen, your son has never been inappropriate with me. We are friends, nothing more. He has helped my business, and I have tried to help his understanding of how ordinary people live." Catherine turned to study Maya more carefully, perhaps seeing her clearly for the first time. "You care about him?" "Yes, I do. He is a good man with kind heart. That is why I think maybe I should step away, so his life can return to normal." Maya, "No," Alexander said quickly. "My life doesn't need to return to normal. Normal was empty and meaningless." Catherine watched this exchange with growing understanding. Her son's feelings for this young woman were deeper than friendship, whether he admitted it or not. And Maya's willingness to sacrifice her own happiness for Alexander's well-being showed a selflessness that Catherine hadn't expected. "What do you want from my son?" Catherine asked Maya directly. Maya considered the question carefully. "I want him to be happy. I want his kindness to make the world better for people like me. I want nothing for myself except maybe to keep learning from him and teaching him small things about life outside his world. And if your friendship costs him his business, his position, his future, then I would disappear tomorrow," Maya said without hesitation. "Some prices are too high to pay for friendship." Alexander stared at Maya in shock. "You would just walk away? If staying meant destroying your life, yes. Real friendship means wanting what is best for the other person even when it hurts." Catherine Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying both her son and this remarkable young woman. Finally, she spoke. "Alexander, walk with me to the car. Ms. Patel, please wait here." Mother and son moved out of Maya's hearing range, leaving her to wonder if she had just sealed the end of the most important relationship in her life. "She loves you," Catherine said quietly. "We're friends, Mother." "Alexander, I've been married for 35 years. I know what love looks like, even when people haven't admitted it to themselves. That young woman is in love with you. And I suspect your feelings run deeper than friendship, too." Alexander felt his defenses crumbling. "Does it matter? You'll never accept her." "I might surprise you. She's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone greedy, manipulative, using your loneliness against you. Instead, I see someone willing to sacrifice her own happiness for your success. That's not manipulation, Alexander. That's love." Catherine looked back at Maya, who was nervously arranging apples to occupy her hands. "She's intelligent, dignified, and genuinely concerned about your welfare. Those are rare qualities in anyone, regardless of their social status. But loving someone and being able to build a life with them are different things. The practical obstacles are enormous. Your social circles, business responsibilities, family expectations." Alexander felt frustrated. "So you're saying love isn't enough?" "I'm saying love needs to be strong enough to overcome real challenges, not just romantic ideals. If you pursue this relationship, you'll both face criticism, social isolation, business, complications. Are you prepared for that? Is she?" As if summoned by their conversation, Maya approached them hesitantly. "I do not mean to interrupt, but reporters are coming back. Maybe this is not good place for private talk." Catherine made a quick decision. "Ms. Patel, would you join us for dinner tonight? I'd like to know you better before I form final opinions about this situation." Maya looked stunned. I have no proper clothes for dinner with family like yours." "Clothes don't matter," Alexander said quickly. Catherine smiled for the first time that evening. "Actually, they do matter, but we can solve that problem. There's a boutique near my house. We'll stop there first." Maya shook her head. "I cannot accept such expensive gifts." "Consider it a loan," Catherine said diplomatically. "Proper business attire for an important meeting." 2 hours later, Maya stood in Catherine Chen's dining room wearing a simple but elegant dress that transformed her appearance without hiding her essential self. The dress was navy blue, cut to flatter her figure while accommodating her disability, discreetly. She felt beautiful for the first time in years, but also terrified. Dinner was an education for all three of them. Catherine learned about Maya's intelligence, her business sense, and her deep knowledge of economics from the perspective of someone who lived with financial uncertainty every day. Maya learned about the pressures of running a business empire, the weight of responsibility for thousands of employees, and the isolation that came with great wealth. Alexander learned things about both women that he had never known. His mother revealed a pragmatic compassion he hadn't seen before, asking Maya thoughtful questions about her experiences with disability and poverty. Maya showed a sophisticated understanding of business principles that impressed even Catherine. "You Bao mentioned wanting to expand your business," Catherine said during dessert. "What would that look like?" Maya's eyes lit up. "I would like to hire other people who have trouble finding work, people with disabilities, older people, immigrants who need chance to prove themselves. Create small network of fruit vendors who help each other, share customers, buy wholesale together for better prices." "That's essentially a cooperative business model," Catherine observed. "It could be quite successful with proper management and startup capital. I have been saving money, but it will take many years to have enough." Catherine and Alexander exchanged glances. "What if you had access to business loan and management consulting?" Catherine asked. Maya looked suspicious. "This would be charity disguised as business." "No," Catherine said firmly. "This would be business, good business based on sound principles and realistic projections. Alexander could provide startup capital, but you would repay the loan with interest. I could provide business mentoring, but you would maintain ownership and control." Maya was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Why would you do this? Catherine surprised herself with her answer. Because you've made my son happy in a way I haven't seen in years. Because your business model could help people while generating profit. And because I think I've been wrong about what makes a person worthy of respect." Alexander felt his heart swelling with love for both women. His mother was extending an olive branch to Maya, offering not just acceptance, but active support. Maya was considering the offer with the careful analysis of a true entrepreneur, not the desperation of someone accepting charity. "There would be conditions," Maya said finally. "What conditions?" Catherine asked. "Alexander and I remain friends, nothing more, until all the loans are repaid and my business is successful. I will not have people say I used romance to get business. Advantages." Alexander started to protest, but Maya held up her hand. "If our friendship is real, it will survive waiting. If it is not real, then business partnership would be disaster anyway." Catherine nodded approvingly. "That's wise. It also gives everyone time to adjust to changes, including the media and your business associates, Alexander." As the evening ended, Alexander drove Maya home to her small room behind the bakery. She was quiet during the ride, processing everything that had happened. "Are you okay?" he asked as they arrived. Maya turned to face him in the dim light of the car. "Your mother is not what I expected. She's full of surprises. What do you think about her business proposal?" "I think she is giving us both a gift. A way to build something real together while respecting the obstacles we face." Alexander reached over and took her hand. "Maya, what my mother said about my feelings—" "I know," Maya said softly. "I feel same way. But she is right that love needs to be strong, enough for real world, not just beautiful in private moments." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands intertwined, both understanding that they had found something rare and precious worth fighting for. "1 year," Maya said finally. "Give me 1 year to build business and prove I am equal partner, not charity case. Then we can see if love is strong enough for everything else." Alexander brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "1 year. But Maya—" "Yes?" "I already know the answer." 6 months later, Maya's cooperative had grown to include 12 vendors across the city. The business was profitable, her loan payments were current, and she had been featured in a business magazine as an innovative entrepreneur. The gossip had died down, replaced by respect for both her business acumen and Alexander's principled support of small business development. Alexander had faced down his critics on the board, proving that his friendship with Maya had made him a more effective leader, not a distracted one. His companies had implemented several programs based on Maya's insights about supporting disadvantaged workers, generating both good publicity and improved employee loyalty. Catherine had become Maya's unofficial mentor, teaching her about finance, marketing, and corporate governance. Their relationship had evolved into genuine mutual respect and affection. On a sunny morning, exactly 1 year after their first meeting, Alexander arrived at Maya's original corner to find her cart decorated with flowers and a sign reading, "1 year anniversary. Thank you for believing in dreams." Maya was wearing the same dress Catherine had bought her for their first dinner together, and she was smiling with confidence born from proving herself in the business world. "So," Alexander said, approaching her cart with a familiar grin, "how much for the apples?" "For you," Maya replied, her eyes sparkling with love and mischief. "Everything is free, but I am very expensive." "How expensive?" Maya stepped around her cart and into his arms. "I cost 1 lifetime of love, respect, and partnership in all things. Can you afford such price?" Alexander kissed her gently, tasting the sweetness of dreams fulfilled and love that had grown stronger through patience and mutual respect. "I've been saving up for exactly that purchase my whole life." Around them, customers and neighboring vendors applauded as the billionaire and the fruit seller embraced, their love story proving that the greatest barriers could be overcome by 2 people willing to build something real together, 1 day at a time. Their wedding 6 months later was held not in a grand ballroom, but in the community garden that Maya's cooperative had helped establish in the neighborhood where they first met. Catherine Chen walked Maya down the aisle, while vendors from Across the city provided flowers, food, and music for a celebration that brought together people from every level of society. As they exchanged vows under a canopy made from fruit trees, Maya and Alexander knew they had found something more valuable than money or social status. They had found a love built on mutual respect, shared values, and the courage to challenge a world that said they didn't belong together. The fruit cart, decorated with white ribbons and flowers, stood nearby as a reminder of where their journey had begun and the simple truth that had brought them together. Sometimes the most important connections happen in the most unexpected places between the most unlikely people, when we have the wisdom to see past surface differences to the beauty of the human heart.